Hey guys, welcome back. It's Miss Birds here. And what we're going to be going over today is pretty much how to just set up your giant playing card. Last class we went through and we've created our border, right? So if I show you my paper, this is pretty much what you have that you're starting out with. You should have created a 1-inch wide border going all the way across or around your paper. That way everything that we are going to be drawing is going to be staying in the center, and we'll have room on the outside to create our letter and then also our suit, right? Because you have to pick a suit, either hearts, clubs, spades, diamonds, and then you're gonna decide, are you gonna do a K for king? Are you going to do a Q for queen? Or are you gonna do a J for jack, right? So those are kind of the requirements of what you're going to be naming your character. Now, this card has already been completed, as you can see, with Santa Claus. And what we do, right, when we're doing a giant playing card is we need to be able to create the inverse image, right? So that pretty much means that if I have my card facing this way, right, my Santa is looking off to the right, and my K and my heart, right, my letter in my suit are in the upper left-hand corner of my paper. So if I were to flip my paper over, I should still have my character in the same position, looking the same way, and then I should still have my letter and my suit in the upper left-hand corner, right? So we're not just taking the image and then like flipping it down this way, right? We're actually doing the inverse image. So it should be going the same direction either way, right? So if I take it here, or if I flip it upside down, my character is still going to be going in the same direction, okay? One of the things that you'll also note on my giant playing card is that I haven't put them right on top of the other, right? I don't have my character in the center and then my character in the center at the bottom. If you do that, your character is going to just all blend in together and look like one. And we really don't want that, right? You want to be able to have a design or a composition that separates your images, right? So my image over here is not directly under this image, right? Gives me a little bit of space to play with a background around here on the outer side. And when I flip it over, it'll look nice, right? It's not kind of fighting for space with this image because it's kind of got its own space over here, right? So in order to kind of set this up, what I like to do first is I like to create a line with my ruler, kind of cutting diagonally across the center, okay? So I'm gonna show you on this other piece of paper that I have here, right? This is pretty much where you guys are starting out. So first we wanna find the center point of our giant rectangle, right? This rectangle is where we want to find our center point at. So I'm just going to take my ruler and kind of measure it. If you don't have a ruler available, you can kind of just guesstimate, right? Just kind of look at it and make a general estimation about where you think the center of your rectangle will be. If I'm measuring from the very top to the very bottom, it's about 9 inches, right? So 9 inches cut in half would be about 4.5 inches. So I'm gonna go down to my 4, go halfway in between my 4 and my 5, and then just mark that. So I know that this is about half of the space of the bottom and half of the space of the top. Now I'm gonna be creating a diagonal line that's going to be cutting through the center of where this point is. So if I take my ruler and kind of just put it up against where I made my point, and I'm just gonna mark what I believe is generally the center. Now I know that my diagonal line is going to cut across through there, and the amount of space that I have up here should generally be the amount of space that I have at the bottom. Now, when I create my diagonal line cutting across that shape, I really don't want to push down hard on my pencil, right? If we look back at this first example, you'll see that it's kind of more of an implied line, right? I don't actually have a line cutting across. That's kind of just where I set up, okay, this is where I'm going to start drawing, and then I erased it out after. So we don't want to see that line that you're dividing your card in half with. So don't push down really hard on the pencil. Remember, keep it light until you get it right. So again, I have my center point here, right, with my center point of the length of the circle, or circle, the length of the rectangle. Sorry, guys. And I'm going to be using my ruler just to create a diagonal line that is cutting across my center point here. And again, I'm gonna do it really lightly so that we can see it, but it can also be erased, right? So now the shape that I have here is going to be the same as the shape that I have here, right? They're generally about even. So there you go. Okay, so you can either draw your character on this side if you want, right? How I drew it on this, on the left-hand side, then you could just reverse the diagonal, right? So instead of cutting across from the high point being on the left going down to the right, you could just switch it, right? You could make the high point on the right going down to the left. The way that I drew it this way, I can draw my character and I'll have a lot of space here, and then I'll have a small amount of space here. I don't know if I really like that though, to be honest. So I'm actually going to erase it and I'm gonna redo it. And this is why it's always good to have an eraser handy, right? Just in case we do make a mistake. Now, I didn't necessarily make a mistake, but I just personally, visually, I like when the character is right next to the K and the heart. So I'm just going to still keep my center mark there. I'm not going to change that at all. Luckily, I drew my line light enough that we can't really see it when it gets erased. And instead of going from the top here, bottom here, I'm going to take from the top on the right-hand side and bring it down to the left-hand side. Okay, still keeping in mind where my mark was for my halfway point. And I'm going to create a very soft, light line cutting through that halfway point. So whatever I have on this side, I'll also have on this side, right? And they're about evenly spaced. It may not be perfectly even, but I think generally they're pretty even. And then that will allow me room to start filling in my character here. I'll either put a background or some type of pattern in the background going on more on this side, kind of like what I did with my Santa Claus, right? My Santa Claus takes up most of the space, and then I have some kind of just bells in the background. So when you start drawing your character, don't draw them itty bitty, right? You have this whole amount of space, and you really want that character to be a large part of that space. And remember what we said earlier, the smaller that you draw a character or any object, the more difficult it's going to be to put in details, right? It's going to be a lot easier to put in details to show different emotions in the face or the character if you draw them a little bit larger. So just kind of keep that in mind as we're going through. You want to take up as much space as possible, right? You want to create a background that's going to make sense with your character, but is also going to take up some space. But keep in mind that your character that you're drawing, or your person, or your animal, whatever you choose to draw for your giant playing card, should be the center focus, right? So whatever you do in the background should still be background, okay? We want to make sure that we're focusing on that character, that face card, okay? So you will be drawing your characters first. That's how I always like to start. And then afterward, you'll create your letter and then also your suit. So notice with my letter, I did a really kind of cool font, and I decided to color it in almost like a candy cane or a peppermint stick, because that kind of relates to Santa Claus, right? And what we think of during Christmas time. So again, when you're choosing your letter, don't just do a plain boring letter, but do something that's going to be really interesting that again would relate to your character or whatever you chose to draw for your giant playing card.